there's a coming eclipse you talk about that signifies that we are close to the end of the age. Could you tell us about that?
Sure. Look at what's coming in the middle of this next Shemitah cycle. On your left, what you see are all the solar eclipse dates: April 8th, October 2nd, March 29th, September 21st. And to the right are all the blood moons or lunar eclipse. Now, here's the thing you have to know scientifically. You can only have a solar eclipse on a new moon. You can only have a lunar eclipse on a full moon. So when God said he created the sun and the moon for signs, that's why he put the biblical calendar on new moons and full moons, so that it would the eclipses would tie into the calendar. Passover is on a full moon. The Feast of Tabernacles is on a full moon. So it's important when you understand how these line up. So if I have a minute, let me just mention to you that first one, April 8th, 2024. Are you familiar with the solar eclipse that goes across the United States in 2017? And now this one is intersecting, going south to north. Are you familiar with that one?
Yes.
The Great American Eclipse?
Yes.
Okay, this one that comes on April 8th, it just so happens on the biblical calendar, which is why you want to get one, it is the first of Nisan. That is the very day the glory fell on Moses' tabernacle. And that is the very day the 3 days of darkness took place in Egypt. And here, the very same day that the 3 days of darkness took place in Egypt, we're having this solar eclipse take place. And it's going through, intersecting the other eclipse in a place called Little Egypt. So what happens, I also want you to notice, if you look at September 18th, 2024, that blood moon, the solar eclipse is just 2 weeks later. Solar eclipses always fall 2 weeks after a lunar eclipse. But look at when they happen on the biblical calendar. I'm going to hold up this slide here, and you'll be able to see when these eclipses occur. They happen on Nisan 1, as I said, and then Elul 15. Elul 15 is 2 weeks before Rosh Hashanah, and it's known as the month of repentance. And then the solar eclipse happens on Rosh Hashanah, followed by the next lunar eclipse, which falls on Purim. That's all about the book of Esther and Haman and the Antichrist. And then the next solar eclipse is again on Nisan 1, followed by Elul 15, followed by Rosh Hashanah, followed by Purim. So it's very significant dates when these eclipses fall from 2024 through 2026 in the middle of this next Shemitah cycle.
Wow. How do you figure all this out? Okay, I mean, the whole studio audience, you guys might be thinking it, but I'm just going to say it for you. How do you figure all this out, Pastor Mark Biltz? This is incredible.
Well, it's when you're on God's calendar, you can look at the eclipses from NASA's website, and then you go back and see when they fall on the biblical calendar. But wait, there's more. This is even going to be more mind-blowing. Okay. Are you ready to go even deeper?
Yes, we are. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Are you getting it here in this audience? Are you getting this at home? No. Okay, we're ready. We're ready.
Okay, now I want to show up this slide here, and all it has is the names of the 12 tribes of Israel around the tabernacle. That is how they were laid out. Judah, to the far right, always went first, okay? And then it would go from east to south to west to north. In Numbers chapter 10 that I talked about in the other program, I mentioned how this is how they traveled when they were to go to war as well. Well, here's the thing. Because Judah went first, And let's look at this next slide. I'm going to show you that on the biblical calendar, the month of Nisan is tied to the tribe of Judah. After Judah would go Issachar. So Issachar was the second month, which is Iyar, and then Zebulun is the third month. Well, Reuben was in charge of the southern side, so then he would go. And you'll notice on the west, Ephraim was in charge, and then on the north, Dan was in charge. But it's very important to know how they traveled and to know that every tribe was assigned a month based on how they traveled. Now, let's go to the next slide, and I want you to notice this. This one has the mothers of the different tribes. So you will see that Leah, her children were on the east that went first, plus going into the south, followed by Gad, who was her handmaid. Then the baton gets passed to Rachel, who's on the west, and then it gets passed to her handmaid, Bilhah, on the north, who then, in one sense, hands it back to Judah. So there's an exact rotation of how they traveled when it came to the months and when it came to go to war. Are you ready for this? Drum roll. Here comes the last slide. You are going to find these eclipses happen in the exact order how they traveled when they were go to war. Because Leah is the mother of Judah who goes first. She passes it to Zilpah, her handmaid, on the low 15, who passes it back to Rachel with Ephraim on Rosh Hashanah, to Bilhah, to Leah, to Zilpah, to Rachel, to Bilhah. Here we see these eclipses just so happen to be in the exact order of how they traveled.
Wow.
Wow.